On today's episode, I'm going to be talking with you about what it actually means to become conscious, to expand your consciousness, and what that really means for me, what it meant for me, and how I can help other people to see if they really want to become conscious in their own lives. I can say that I would consider that I lived unconsciously for the majority of my life. And my awakening, should I say, came in 2020 during the COVID lockdowns, where I had a lot more time to start looking at the world in a completely different way. I began to realize that my own self sabotaging ways had kept me stuck in a perpetual state of depression, anxiety, learned helplessness, and really I was numbing myself with alcohol to get away from the unbearable pain that I was in. And I can think of many different excuses and reasons for that. But what I will say is that I don't think I could have actually gotten through 2020 without alcohol, in fact. And it wasn't until the year after that that I decided to quit drinking. So I quit drinking for good about a year and a half ago. And as I said in the previous episode, for me, it was just time. I think I'd seen all I needed to see with drinking. For me, part of this decision to try and become more conscious, I needed to get rid of alcohol. And for a lot of people, I think that this can be one of the hardest experiences, one of the hardest things to ever have to, quit something that they've been doing all these years. For me, it wasn't that difficult to actually quit the drinking, but what was difficult was how I was going to begin to rebuild my life, and I was going to have to create a new life for myself almost from the ground up. And a year and a half on, that is what I'm still doing, essentially creating a new life for myself and thinking to myself, what are my values now? What are the things that I would have done if I'd have known better? I have a therapist, and I have an amazing therapist. And one of the things that I struggle with a lot is my own self-sabotaging negative thought patterns, which is really common for everybody. Anybody that suffers with depression or anxiety, self-sabotage is a massive thing. And I was talking with her a couple of weeks ago about the fact that I can't get it out of my head that I've wasted all these years. And I often say to her, I'm really struggling with just not being able to get it out of my head that I wasted all these years. And she said something to me that was amazing. And she said, just because you might have done it differently doesn't mean it would have been any better. And she also said to me, if you had the chance again, you'd do it exactly the same. And I really had to think on that. She said to me, if you'd have had the chance to redo over the last few years, the last 10 years, say, you would do exactly the same. And that's really something to think about, isn't it? That's really something to think about, because I think that she's absolutely right. I think that we do the best that we can with what we're given. And some of us work a lot harder than others, and some of us don't work as hard as others. But I think that when it comes to our awareness and our consciousness, and this topic that I'm talking about today of being conscious, that's where we've got the opportunity to turn things round. And what we're doing is we're staring into the abyss and waiting to see what the abyss is going to scream back at us. That's how I feel. That's how I feel right now. I'm starting this podcast as a self-discovery, self-healing journey, and I want to help other people. And I'm hoping that by sharing my own story, people will resonate with what I'm saying, and they'll be able to understand why I'm doing this. When you first start therapy, you're opening up a can of worms. Some people go to therapy because they're kind of made to go to therapy. Some people go to therapy and they don't take it very seriously. When I went to therapy, I was like, this is it. I am at this age and I want to improve my life. I want something different for myself. I want a completely different life. I want to know if it's too late. Is it too late? Or have I got a chance? Have I got a chance to turn this around? Can I turn this around? And let me tell you that going through therapy, if you are taking this seriously, if you're taking in everything that you're asking questions, you really want to know yourself. This is a self-discovery journey, and you're really asking questions of the therapist. You're making sure that you've got the right therapist, and you're getting to the root of you're trying to get to the root of all the reasons why you're struggling, why you think you're struggling mentally. Then you're opening up a can of worms. In the last year, I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of hours of podcasts. And I mean, I could sit here and list all the different podcasts that I listen to. So many people that have helped me out. Some of these people are my friends now. And some people, I listen to their podcasts and then they recommend other books to listen, to read, to listen to, and stuff like that. So I have got an entire list of self-help books, things that have helped me along this journey so far. And about a month ago, I knew I was going to do this podcast, but about a month ago, I got to the stage where I was like, and I spoke to one of my friends and I said, do you know what? I've just realized something. I have consumed hundreds and hundreds of hours. I was gonna say thousands then, but I think that's a bit extreme. But I've consumed hundreds and hundreds of hours of content here, of self-improvement, of healing, of stuff to do with relationships, or how to improve romantic relationships, stuff about friendships, attachment styles, all kinds of things. Becoming more conscious about childhood trauma, about different personality types and different personality disorders, etc., etc., and how to heal from this, how to improve your life, how to self-improvement and all of that kind of thing. I was thinking about a book that I had read, which was called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which talks about how trauma is held in the body. And I've read this book. I've read it page to page. And I was in my therapy session, and a few days after I'd finished reading the book, and I was telling my therapist about this book that I just finished reading, and I was saying, this is an amazing book that I've read. I'd recommend everybody reading this book. And I could hardly remember anything that I'd read. I could hardly remember anything. And I thought to myself, oh my God, when we take in this information, if we're reading, if we're listening to podcasts, if we're listening to hours and hours of podcasts, unless we are making notes, unless we're journaling, or unless we're doing something to return that information somehow, then where is it going? Is it helping, or is it just kind of going in one ear and out the other? So what I'm trying to say here is that we can consume so much information when we are on this healing journey, this self-discovery journey, becoming more conscious, etc., whatever you want to call it. But unless we're actually transmuting that information and doing something useful with it and giving back, that can be in the form of what I'm doing right now with the podcast, giving back. It can be in the form of training to be a therapist. It could be in the form of going to 12-step groups and chatting with other people and helping other people. It could be in the form of, being a good friend to other people, wanting to share your information with other people in that way. Unless we're doing something with it, then we're just consuming. And part of becoming conscious for me was being less of a consumer and more of a giver, more of a provider, more of a creator. So that's my point here. I'd spent my whole life consuming reality TV, X Factor, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, all that shit. For years and years. And I suddenly got to the point where I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing all these years? So when it comes to healing, when it comes to, becoming more conscious and these different things, and what I'm actually going to do after this episode is I'm going to upload onto my Instagram. My Instagram is called Ascending the Abyss. So I would love anybody that could follow me on Instagram. Put on my story some of my books that I've read over the last year and a half. Today, what I'm saying to you is that this healing journey, this sort of self-discovery journey, this expansion of consciousness for me is a work in progress. It's a continuous thing. If you're listening to me, you're listening to somebody that is in the stages of discovery. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing with you things as I go along. I'm not sitting here as an expert. I'm not sitting here as somebody that is going to be like, here's how to do this. Here's how to improve your anxious attachment style. Here is how to have a more secure attachment style. Here is how to never suffer from anxiety ever again. Here is how to cure your personality disorder. I'm just going to be sitting here and doing the best that I can to inform you of what I've learned, the way you behave with other people, the stuff that you consume, as in the media that you consume, the books that you read, the information that you take in, the people that you surround yourself with, the kind of relationships that you have, the food, the water that you the food that you consume, the water that you drink, the air that you breathe, how you spend your time, what you're doing to expand your mind, your mindset. If you're really prepared to stand at the precipice and, like I said, stare into that abyss, stare into that void, you don't know what's going to happen. And it can be one of the scariest things. It's the scary for me. People say to me, since you stopped drinking, do you feel better? And I'm like, no, I don't. Not because I want to drink or because I've got cravings for alcohol, but because once again, as I said before, you're having to face your demons. You're having to face your demons, and so one of those things was actually just getting the podcast started, and it was naming the podcast as well. That was really tricky for me because we live in a world of light and dark, of polarity. I didn't want to make it too depressing, but I also didn't want to make it too positive. I'm not interested in this toxic positivity of love, and it's just not me. That's just not me. It's not me at the moment. And so my Instagram is an art gallery, and it's inspired by many people that have influenced me. And so this episode is about becoming more conscious. I'm conscious at the moment that I haven't even got a clue whether anybody, apart from a couple of my best friends, shout out there, are even going to be listening to this. And just for fun, I've pulled up my friend Google. So what does becoming more conscious mean? So being aware and understanding your emotional, thought, and physical processes, making deliberate, intelligent, and careful decisions, maintaining a positive mindset regardless of the circumstances. I don't know about that. Keeping your focus and knowing what's important in any given moment, having a rational and accurate idea of reality. That's I struggle with that. I struggle with that because I very much like to blur the lines between what is real and what is a fantasy. Pulled up something else on Quora, which is quite interesting. Are some people more conscious than others? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that gets into the argument of do we have NPCs living amongst us, non-player characters in this matrix? Do we have non-player characters living amongst us? Well, that's an interesting question because I've often thought that it's possible, but then I also think to myself, well, what makes me any different to somebody else that is still in the stages of binging on reality TV and getting fucked up constantly on alcohol and drugs and constantly getting involved in toxic relationships, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to cast shade on anyone. But yeah, so are some people more conscious than others? Definitely. I found something else on Quora that I like as well. So the question here is, why do so many people have a low level of consciousness? It's like they go through life just living on a base level of consciousness. Question. It really boils down to four main categories: native intelligence, curiosity, opportunities to grow, and time. Most people, unfortunately, are either too lucky or too unfortunate to develop a high level of awareness. Too lucky, that's interesting, isn't it? When somebody is too busy being behind the eight ball, they can't possibly have the calm and consistency needed to grow their awareness. The lucky ones, the same. When someone is too intoxicated with life's pleasure, they dull their minds and do not have the need to seek a higher awareness. So it's really rare because quite a few conditions must be met. One must first need to grow their awareness, be of a curious nature, and also pre-presented with the opportunity to do so. So I think that's an interesting thing. Be presented with the opportunity to do so. The COVID lockdowns of 2020 gave me the opportunity to expand my consciousness. So to sum up, what does being conscious mean to me? It means constantly growing my mindset, trying to constantly grow my mindset, and now trying to put that to good use. And anybody can do this. This is if they want to. And this is how they, teacher or a speaker or whatever, what is your medium? Do you want to help other people in terms of a group setting, or are you just going to get on a podcast like what I'm doing right here? So that's today's episode on consciousness, a little starter on consciousness. And the Instagram is Ascending the Abyss. And I'll see you next time.